Hey guys, Level Cap here. Today I've got some gameplay and a guide for a fully upgraded STURMGESCHUTZ 4. We'll be talking about how to play with this tank, how to upgrade it, and what it's good at. This is a tank destroyer by nature. It was designed as a tank destroyer. It's what it was effective at in World War II, and it was widely used and highly effective in this role. Now, we've actually had tank destroyers in the game since launch. The Churchill gun carrier, that big block of metal on two treads, has been in the game, and it's honestly not been a very popular tank, mostly because there haven't been many maps that really cater to tank versus tank gameplay. Well, the Panzerstorm map and the new Grand Operations that happens on the Panzerstorm map offers plenty of tank versus tank gameplay, and this is going to make both the Churchill gun carrier, the Stug 4, and the new Valentine Archer tank much more popular because those are specifically designed to engage other armored targets, less so infantry. Now, one of the main benefits the Stug 4 has over the Churchill gun carrier is its profile. It's much lower down, harder to see, it's lighter weight in general, so it's faster, easier to move around the battlefield, get on target, even potentially flank other tanks. Now, because of the cannon design where it's not in a fully rotating turret, the tank always has to be facing its opponent, which means you can't employ some of the more advanced maneuvering tactics. For the most part, this tank is not going to be in motion when fighting other armored vehicles. It's got to kind of face off against them, turn its armor towards them where it's the thickest and best protected from, and then just slug away or take them out. In real life, this would be more of a sniper role, and its cannon was powerful enough to really one-shot most of its opponents, so it's not really going to be sitting there exchanging round after round against other tanks. In Battlefield, though, we're playing a video game, and multiple rounds are needed to take out your opponents, so the overall design or concept of these vehicles doesn't exactly play out necessarily as it would have in real life, but it doesn't mean that they can't still be effective vehicles. Also, you just saw me flank around and completely obliterate an entire group of infantry there. Our team was actually able to push onto the point, I think largely because of this flank, which is kind of awesome. The tanks, because of its low profile and maybe even this camouflage, it's sometimes hard to see it, especially when you're playing on a map or a battlefield that's got tons of tank wreckages everywhere. Spotting is not really a thing now with tanks in terms of like actually highlighting them unless you've got a sniper spotting them or an assault is running that spotting profile. So a lot of people just don't see you half the time until it's too late. Something unique to the Stug 4 and the first time we've seen in Battlefield 5 is a remote gunner turret on a tank. This way the gunner doesn't actually have to expose themselves or duck down when fire's coming in, and they don't have to worry about dying unless the tank itself gets destroyed. The remote gunner turret does have some of its vision obstructed by the actual normal gunner turret that's to its left, but it's still a very safe place to shoot from. The only problem is that it doesn't have incredible range or visibility, so the Stug generally wants to sit pretty far away from the combat, and the gunner itself won't have as many target opportunities unless you're playing with a very aggressive Stug driver. This could be done with some good teamwork and good communication between gunner and driver, and it's possibly one of the first times you can start controlling a tank a little bit more like you could in previous Battlefield games, where the driver and gunner relationship was far more important. Gunners in Battlefield 5 so far haven't been quite as useful simply because they just get killed too easily once you're exposed on top of the tank. Now, when it comes to customizing your tank, sometimes it can take a little while to rank up vehicles. Pressing down the right side progression tree makes the most sense to me because you get all the best benefits at the start, and in my opinion, you get some of the best upgrades at the end. Smokescreen launcher is very useful in the Stug 4. I use it all the time for escaping from combat when needed. The track repair is universally useful. You could argue that you get more utility out of track skirts. You could play around with those two ones. It doesn't really matter too much. I think the repair is better. Then you can upgrade to the 75mm cannon that will just make your primary shot do more damage against other vehicles in general, which is good. You do have limited ammo in Battlefield 5, so the more damage you can do per shot, the better. And lastly, you get the armor-piercing rounds, which are actually very good. It really turns the Stug into a sniping tank. And if you go up against anything that is not a heavy tank with those armor-piercing rounds, you can down them very fast and from a range at which they probably won't even know where they're getting hit from. And in this clip here, you'll see I can engage this staghound here from just an insane range, so far away that he probably won't even be able to see me or realize where he's getting hit from. There's, again, lots of dead tanks on this battlefield, and if you sit still, which most of the time you do when you're sniping in a Stug, they just won't even know who's shooting them or which tank is shooting them, and it can be a very tricky situation. Now, depending on how Battlefield goes from this point on in terms of map development and game mode development, the Stug 4 could be a very, very effective tank killing vehicle. It's not bad against infantry either. The main cannon has great splash damage as well. But basically, you need a good, wide open map with lots of flanking routes. Here, using it on the breakthrough mode can be fun, but because it is more choke pointed and generally tanks know where you're coming from, heavy tanks will have an easier time of killing you. The Stug does not do that well against heavy tanks. If you're going up against a Churchill gun carrier or just a normal Churchill, you're mostly outclassed. They have very heavy armor and it's rough. You don't want to engage those guys in a close range firefight where they can hit all of their shots against you. You're gonna lose. Here, I test out this theory. I find a Churchill heavy tank and he's ready for me. I get the first hit in, but it doesn't matter too much. Disabling his turret in a standstill tank fight doesn't matter too much. The Stug can't engage while mobile, unless it's just going towards a tank or backing away from a tank, and he can easily punch through my armor before I'm able to punch through his. So you could certainly think of the Stug 4 as a glass cannon, although I feel like the half tracks with the mounted cannons on them are a bit more appropriate for that analogy. The Stug 4 has more armor than those. But it's just not a tank that you can have a slugfest with a heavy tank that is hitting every shot. And you don't have the mobility or the maneuverability to try and throw off their aim. So it's a tricky vehicle to use in that scenario. Now, Battlefield 5 lets you pick any armored vehicle when you're choosing a vehicle. It's not like some of the previous Battlefield games where a point could spawn one tank and one APC, so normally you like the tank, but if there's only an APC available, then you take that and make do with it, where you can have vehicles that are not symmetrically balanced. But DICE has tried to balance most of the vehicles in Battlefield 5, where you look at them all and say, well, what do I want here? I can either take a light tank, a heavy tank, a medium tank, a tank sniper. They all have to try and balance against each other in one way or another, and that's a little bit tricky, especially when many of your modes just don't really work like that. Many modes in Battlefield 5 really just call for one type of tank or one style. The real world benefits of the Stug 4, like manufacturing speed and manufacturing cost versus bigger, heavier armored tanks, don't really come through in Battlefield 5 because there is no economy behind that. You can pick anything from the heavy to light tank and the game doesn't really care. You just get a tank. And so again, that gets really difficult to try and balance that in a Battlefield game. And I don't think they've quite done a perfect job of it yet, or they just don't have enough maps to show that the Stug 4 is actually quite good and quite effective on the proper maps. Now, all that balance and technical mumbo jumbo aside, the Stug 4 is fun. I like it. It's light, it's fast. I like the ability to flank. I like the ability to get around the map quickly. Yeah, you kind of got to sit still and slug away in firefights, which is a little bit less interesting than other tanks. But since shooting while being mobile in Battlefield 5 is already very difficult thanks to some of the vehicle mechanics and physics, it's not at a huge disadvantage when it comes to mobility and trickery in combat. When it comes to upgrading this tank, if you can get into a good game on this new Hanu Grand Operation, it recycles itself at the moment. I think DICE will eventually remove that, but Hanu is one of the best places to work on armor upgrades. If you can get on the German side, then good. If you're on the British side, well, work on some of your British tanks. Gives you tons of tank spawns, tons of opportunities to fight other tanks, infantry, and get lots of points. So play this game mode, you'll rank up your armor in no time whatsoever. As always, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this guide to the Stug 4, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.